First Fruit into Life and Victory in Our Time, Part 1. Jesus was the first fruit, fulfilling the appointed time in Leviticus 23. Now let's talk about those who received him, followed him, and were resurrected. Here, we begin with the first great harvest after the introduction and the spreading of the kingdom that started in the 1st century. In the book of Revelation chapter 14, we read about 144,000 who were the first harvest, and the first fruits. This is the way I understand, as revealed to my heart. These were the ones who had not defiled themselves, for they never entered into corrupted covenants. These were the ones who followed the Lamb wherever he went. They have been purchased as first fruits to God and to the Lamb into the new covenant. Before Jesus went to the cross, his Last Supper was an engagement or betrothal covenant. The cup was lifted as a symbol of his blood covenant seal and understood in the Hebrew culture of his time. He was the kinsman redeemer. He basically purchased his bride and gave a dowry, or a token, or in Hebrew, a mohar, that was the bridal gift. He paid with his own blood. On the first day after Passover, Jesus was raised from the dead. It was the fulfillment of the first fruit. What about the 144,000 first fruits? The answer is, within their 40 years generation, the assemblies of Hebrew believers in Jesus kept growing. Those who were not Hebrews from other nations, called Gentile, were added. In Matthew 24 verse 14 Jesus say, "This gospel of the kingdom shall be preached into all the world, and then the end will come." It happened exactly as Jesus told his disciples in verse 34 and 35, "Truly, I tell you, this generation will by no means pass away, till all those things take place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my word will never pass away." Within their 40 years generation, the heaven and earth, that was the Jerusalem temple, came to an end. This was a term known and used in their culture meaning, the temple, that was where God, from heaven, and men, on the earth came together. In the meantime, the good news, that was the gospel about the everlasting kingdom, was preached, and it was confirmed as it is written, "This is the gospel that you heard and that has been proclaimed to every creature under heaven." We also see the fulfillment in relation to first fruit in Romans chapter 11, as Paul used the analogy of the one single tree, "For if the first fruit is holy, the lump is also holy, and if the root is holy, so are the branches. And if some of the branches were broken off, and you, being a wild olive tree, were grafted in." So, we can read that the first Hebrew believers were the first fruits, and others became grafted in and formed one tree. This was going to become all Israel into one tree. This analogy of one tree is another picture of the new city already experienced by the early Hebrew believers, who were already the first fruits coming forth from the tree, as it is written, "You came to Mount Zion, and to a city of the living God, to the heavenly Jerusalem, and to myriads of messengers, to the company and assembly of the firstborn, first fruits in heaven enrolled, and to God the judge of all, and to spirits of righteous men made perfect, and to a mediator of a new covenant, Jesus." Here we are talking about the assembly of all believers that is also called the bride. She is not yet married at the time this was written. It was a mystery, however. We can understand that those were called the first fruits at the end of the old, and the completion of the new everlasting covenant 40 years later. When the end came in 70 AD, that was the end of the old covenant. those who already died physically along those who were still alive became the first fruits. Those were the Hebrews' children in the one promised seed of Christ to Abraham, reaching the fullness with other believers from many nations who also received the one seed, and were grafted to the one and only Hebrew tree, that is called Israel. It was the access to the holy city through the 12 gates that symbolized the 12 tribes of Israel, sitting on the foundation of the 12 apostles and Jesus being the cornerstone. Other nations also received the access as they became one with the 12 grafted in. We know that all are one in Jesus, the seed. The only one seed that was promised to Abraham, as it is written, the promises were spoken to Abraham and to his seed. The scripture does not say unto his seeds meaning many, but to your seed, meaning one, who is Christ. The initial plan of redemption, through Jesus, the one spiritual seed, was already revealed when the fall took place, as it is written in Genesis chapter 3. The one seed was revealed to the 12 tribes, becoming the entrance, the door. The number 12 is very meaningful. It relates to authority of time, also pointing to New Jerusalem gates. From the one who create and multiply, it was given 12 baskets left over to keep feeding or establishing the people of Israel. We can read it in the Gospel of Mark, where Jesus answers his disciples in relation to the fullness of the Gentiles' nations. Jesus asked them, "Why are you debating about having no bread? Do you still not see or understand?" In the next video, we will see what was the revealing message that Jesus gave his disciples. Shalom.